So this is the the first thing you put into the looper. This establishes your initial loop, and you basically can't undo it once you've done it. So you get to decide, is this going to be your pad stabs chords, or is this going to be your bass line? So if you have a song that has the same chord progression throughout, but if you're doing it where there is a second movement, which we're going to call a chorus, we're going to pretend this is a pop song, you want your second movement to change, you would want to put your chords on the bottom and then put your bass line ahead of that so that you can change the bass line later. You also have the power to do a prelude before you hit the looping pedal. So you can write your little intro and then set up your loop. Once you have this loop, it loops. And so on this point, you can add your second loop anywhere you really want. You can set it to go here, but you need to remember that it will loop back. So if you start your bass line, or we're gonna say these are chords, and this is bass. And if you start your bass line mid-loop, you're going to have to remember to fill in this spot, or you will have a section without bass. And this does mean you could punch and just have a bass section that takes up part of the loop. You could have it, if you've got 4 bars here, you could have bar 2 and 3 have a bass line, and then bars 4 and 1 not have your bass line. You can build that, and as long as you have not put another thing on top of this bass line, you can take it off and change it because you can edit the last input. So now you have your chords and your bass, and you can decide if you want your melody to exist on top of or concurrent with the other loops. Where you add this melody in your loops also can affect how your song goes. You can let this play for several loops before you add your melody. And also you can add, if you want to add pads and stabs up here on top of your bass and your chords, or something like that, or you want to add a little bingly bob that comes in at a certain point, you can add all of that, and then you have your basic mix. After which you're going to want to add your melody. So your melody can exist on top of that. You can have this part loop over and over while your melody exists outside of that. You can change your bass and take it off and put it back on as you play. Or you can take the melody and you can have the melody exist inside of the loop. Now you have a separate discrete loop. So you can have your loop play, and then you put your melody in here, and then you punch it into your loop right here. You now have a section of melody that's part of the loop, and when you come around, that section of melody is still there. So you could play not looping or not inputting your melody again, and then when you get back to this part where you punched in the melody, you can add a harmony on top of your melody. That's the basic functions of how this works. And then you can remove your most recent input. So you could take the harmony away, but you need to remember that with a single pedal, you build, and once you put something on top of that last layer, you can't take it back off. And looping is largely about starting with something simple and then adding onto it. And when you build a song like that, you need to remember that if you only have one phrase, what you're doing gets cemented down underneath. And you need to consider that while you're composing.